It's all about those small wins. It's those small steps that lead to big changes.
Yes, and those small steps can sometimes feel a lot easier to manage than like thinking about the whole big, overwhelming project of decluttering.
Absolutely. It's so easy to get bogged down in that feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah, like I'm never going to get through all of this.
Right. But when you break it down into manageable chunks, it suddenly feels a lot more doable.
And it's not just about like the physical act of decluttering either,
Yeah.
right?
It's about the mental and emotional shift that happens when you start to let go of things that are no longer serving you.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're tackling something that I think a lot of us struggle with, clutter.
Definitely a universal challenge.
Yeah, so we're going to be diving deep into a really fascinating interview between Mel Robbins and decluttering expert Dana White.
Oh, yeah. I love her.
Yeah, there are just so many great takeaways. I actually listened to it a couple times because I was like, wait, there's so much good stuff in here.
She's great. She's very practical.
Right, and it really kind of shifted my perspective on how I think about organizing and decluttering and like what the real problem is.
Well, and what I like about her is that she really emphasizes understanding your own personal relationship with your stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to fit some mold,
Yeah.
or achieving some Instagram-worthy level of minimalism.
Right. It's about what works for you.
Exactly.
And one of the things that she talks about that I found really helpful was this idea of a clutter threshold. Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah. This is one of her key concepts.
Okay, so tell me more about it. Because when I heard this, I was like, oh my gosh, this explains so much.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So basically, she says that everyone has a different clutter threshold. And that is essentially the amount of stuff that you can personally keep under control without feeling overwhelmed. And so when you exceed that threshold, that's when you start to feel like things are out of control and you can't keep up.
Okay, so it's not about being a naturally neat person or a messy person.
Right.
It's about how much stuff you can handle, like what your capacity is.
Exactly. Your personal capacity.
Yeah, and I think that's so freeing because I used to think like, oh, I'm just not a naturally organized person.
Right. Or you're not trying hard enough.
Right, and it's like, no, it's actually just that I maybe have more stuff than I can handle at this point in my life.
Exactly. And once you understand that about yourself,
Yeah.
then you can start to make conscious decisions about what you're bringing into your home and what you need to let go of.
Yes, and I think that's a great segue into another really important distinction that Dana White makes, which is decluttering versus organizing.
Yes. Love this.
So I used to think these were the same thing, like decluttering is organizing, but she's very clear that they are separate activities.
Totally. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that trap too.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
organizing is often what we think of first, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how do I make this look nice? How do I get the right containers, the right systems? But that's often putting the cart before the horse.
Totally. I've been there so many times, like
Yeah.
going to the container store and being like, I'm going to get organized.
Right.
But really what needs to happen first is decluttering. It's about getting things out of your house.
Out?
Yeah, and then the organizing naturally kind of falls into place.
It does, because you have less stuff
Right.
less to deal with.
Okay, so for those of us who maybe haven't quite grasped this distinction yet, which I think is probably a lot of people, what are some of the key differences between decluttering and organizing?
So decluttering is really about making decisions about what you're keeping and what you're getting rid of.
Okay.
It's about reducing the volume of stuff in your home.
Got it.
Whereas organizing is more about creating systems for the stuff that you're keeping.
Okay.
So it's about finding homes for things, making things easy to find and put away, and kind of creating that visual order that a lot of us crave.
So it's like decluttering is the what and organizing is the how.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so decluttering has to come first.
Absolutely.
We've got to get the stuff out, and then we can figure out how to organize what's left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is where her 5-step decluttering process comes in, which is just so brilliantly simple and effective.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break down these 5 steps, because I think this is where it gets really practical.
Okay.
So step 1, she says, start with trash.
Easiest place to start.
Right. Just grab a trash bag and get rid of anything that's obviously garbage.
Broken items, expired products, anything you know you're never going to use.
Okay, so this is like no-brainer stuff, right? It's just about getting the momentum going, getting comfortable with the act of letting go.
Love it.
You don't even have to make any tough decisions at this stage.
Okay, step 2.
This is what she calls easy stuff.
Okay.
And these are items that already have a designated home in your house. So you simply pick them up and you put them back where they belong.
Okay. Again, like not overthinking it.
No, just quick action.
Just do it.
Exactly.
All right, step 3.
This is donations.
Donations. Okay.
So have a designated box or a bag ready to go specifically for donations, And here's the key. As soon as you come across something that you want to donate, you put it directly in that box.
I love that.
Don't overthink it.
Don't let it sit there. Don't give yourself time to second guess.
Don't even let it touch the floor.
Yes, just in the box.
Fun. I love that.
Because that's where we get stuck, right? Is
Yeah.
that decision fatigue.
Yes.
So this eliminates that.
Okay, so we've cleared the trash. We've put away the easy stuff. We've got a donation box going.
We're making progress.
We're on a roll. Step 4. Step 4 is where it gets a little more interesting. This is where we start to really make some decisions about what we're keeping.
Okay.
So step 4 is all about asking yourself this question. Where would I look for this first?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's such a brilliant question because it really taps into your intuition.
Right.
And it helps you determine the most logical place for that item to live.
It's like, if I needed this, where would I instinctively go to find it?
Exactly. And if you can immediately answer that question, you've found its home.
Done.
Done. Put it there.
But what if you can't think of a place?
That's when we move to step 5.
Okay, step 5, lay it on me.
This is the big one. This is the question. If I needed this, would I remember I had it?
Oh, I like that.
It's so good, right?
Yeah.
Because it really cuts through all the sentimentality.
Yeah.
And it helps you assess the true value of an item.
Yeah, because sometimes we hold on to things for like emotional reasons.
Yeah.
Or we think, I might need that someday. But realistically, if I needed it, would I even remember that I have it tucked away in that bin in the back of the closet?
Exactly. And if the answer is no, then it's probably not something you truly need or use.
So this whole 5-step process, I love how simple it is, and I love how it keeps you moving forward.
Momentum, right?
Yes, it prevents that like analysis paralysis that I know I personally get stuck in,
I think we all do.
right? Where you're just
Yeah.
like staring at a pile of stuff and you're like, I don't even know where to begin.
Right. And you end up just shutting the drawer and walking away.
Exactly. But with this process, it's just like, okay, what's the trash? What's easy to put away? What can I donate? And then where would I look for this first? If I needed it, would I remember I had it?
And it keeps you making decisions.
Yes.
And it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
I love that. Okay, so we've tackled the 5 steps of decluttering.
We're on a roll.
We're getting the stuff out of our house. But now I want to talk about one of the biggest aha moments for me personally that came out of this interview.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say. This is a good one.
It's about containers.
Oh, yes, containers, but not in the way that you might think.
Right, because I think a lot of us, when we think about getting organized, we think about buying containers.
Bins, baskets, all
which
that.
I've pretty storage solutions.
Right, make it look nice.
Yes. And Dana White, she tells this really funny story about how she went out and bought all these red buckets to organize her kids' crayons.
Oh, yeah, I remember that story.
And she thought that was going to be like the key to having an organized craft area.
The solution.
Yes. But she realized that buying more containers didn't actually solve the problem of too much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just created more places to store clutter.
More places to put it.
Exactly. And that's when she had this revelation about containers. They're not just storage solutions, they're actually limits.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a mind shift.
It's a total mind shift. So instead of thinking about like, oh, I need to buy more containers to fit all this stuff, it's about thinking, okay, what is the limit of this container, this shelf, this drawer,
This room.
this room? Yes. And what do I want to keep within that limit?
Choose what you want to keep,
Right.
rather than letting your stuff dictate how much space you need.
Yes, and I think that's such a profound concept because it really applies to so much more than just our physical clutter.
Absolutely.
It's about our time, our energy, our commitments.
all of it.
Yeah, like what are the containers in our lives?
Right.
And are we exceeding the limits of those containers? And if so, how can we start to kind of pare back and create more space?
That's such a good point.
So this has been like a huge mind shift for me.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful.
And we've covered so much ground already, but I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of the things that are standing out to you so far? Like what's really resonating?
Well, I think the container concept is just brilliant. It really makes you think about how you're using your space and what you're allowing into your life. And I think the other thing that's really important is this idea that decluttering is not a one-time event.
Right.
It's a journey.
Yes.
It's about developing mindful habits and routines that help you maintain a clutter-free lifestyle over time.
I love that because I think a lot of us, we get into that cycle of like decluttering and then it just piles up again.
Right. And then we feel defeated.
Exactly.
But it's really about making those small changes, those daily habits that make a big difference in the long run.
So it's like shifting your mindset from like, this is a huge, overwhelming task to this is an ongoing process
Exactly.
that I can integrate into my everyday life.
Small steps.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the clutter threshold, the difference between decluttering and organizing, the 5 steps of decluttering, and that brilliant container concept. But what happens when you're trying to do all of this with a partner who might have a completely different tolerance for stuff than you do?
Ah, yes, the partner factor.
This is where it gets tricky.
It can definitely be a challenge.
Yeah, so we'll dive into that next time.
Let's do it.
Stay tuned, because we're going to explore how to navigate different clutter thresholds in a relationship and how to find that balance.
And peace.
And peace, yes, without driving each other crazy. So let's talk about relationships, because I think this is where it can get really tricky when you're trying to declutter and organize with a partner who might have a completely different tolerance for stuff than you do.
Yeah, it's definitely a common challenge, and it can create a lot of tension in a relationship.
So what does Dana White have to say about this?
Well, she emphasizes the importance of focusing on your own decluttering first.
Okay, so instead of trying to change your partner,
Right.
you're focusing on yourself.
Exactly. It's about leading by example rather than trying to impose your standards on someone else.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that in the past.
I think we all have.
Being like, why can't you just get rid of this stuff?
Right. Why can't you put things back where they belong?
Yeah, but she's saying like that's not really the most effective approach.
No, because it often just creates resistance and resentment.
Right. It turns into a battle.
Exactly. Whereas when you focus on creating a peaceful and organized space for yourself, it can actually inspire your partner to do the same.
So it's like you're kind of subtly inviting them into this world of decluttering.
Right. You're modeling the behavior that you want to see.
Without being like preachy about it.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about when it comes to shared spaces, like the living room or the kitchen?
Well, she suggests aiming for the lowest common clutter threshold.
Okay, what does that mean?
So it means finding a level of tidiness that both of you can live with comfortably.
Even if it's not like your ideal level of tidiness.
Right. It's about compromise.
Okay, so it's not about one person getting their way, it's about finding that middle ground.
Exactly. And it's important to have an open and honest conversation with your partner about this.
Yeah, communication is key in any relationship.
Absolutely. And, you can say something like, hey, I know we have different preferences when it comes to clutter, but I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in our shared spaces.
Yeah.
Can we talk about finding a way to make this work for both of us?
So approach it from a place of collaboration.
Right. Not accusation.
Yeah, and maybe you can even agree on like designated spaces for your partner's belongings.
That's a great idea. So if your partner has a collection of something that's important to them, but maybe doesn't quite fit your aesthetic.
Yeah, like my partner has a collection of vintage cameras.
Okay. Perfect example.
To me, they look a bit cluttered on our bookshelf, but I realize that it's his passion and it brings him joy, so we created a special display area for them.
I love that.
It's not my style, but it makes him happy and it keeps the peace.
That's a perfect example of finding a compromise that works for both of you.
Right. And sometimes it's just about letting go of the need to control everything
Yes.
and embracing a little bit of organized chaos.
Especially if you have kids.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's a whole other level.
But I think the important thing is that you're both on the same page.
Right. And that you're communicating and working together to create a space that feels good for both of you.
Okay, so we've talked about how to declutter with a partner. But what about the challenge of staying on top of clutter even after you've decluttered? Like, how do you prevent it from piling up again?
Ah, yes, the maintenance phase.
This is where I struggle.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Life gets busy, routines slip, and things just start to accumulate again.
So what's the secret? What does Dana White recommend?
Well, she's a big advocate for establishing simple routines over overwhelming to-do lists.
Okay, I like that because to-do lists can feel so daunting,
They can, and they often just lead to procrastination.
whereas routines are more like built-in habits.
Exactly. It's about integrating these small actions into your daily life so they become second nature.
So what kind of routines does she suggest?
Well, she has 4 key routines that she recommends.
Okay, hit me with them.
Number 1, doing dishes daily.
Okay, that seems manageable.
Right. It prevents that pileup of dirty dishes in the sink.
Which can quickly become overwhelming.
Yes. And then number 2 is doing a 5-minute pickup each day.
Okay, so just like setting a timer.
Exactly. And going around the house and just putting things back where they belong.
I love that because it's not like this huge cleaning session.
No, it's just a quick tidy up.
Right.
And then number 3 is checking bathrooms for clutter regularly.
Okay, this is a good one because bathrooms can get out of control quickly.
They can, especially if you have multiple people using the same bathroom.
Yeah. And then number 4 is sweeping the kitchen floor.
Another simple but effective routine.
And I love that these routines are about more than just cleanliness.
Right.
They're about awareness.
Yes.
And creating a habit of putting things back where they belong.
Exactly. It's about maintaining that sense of order and flow in your home.
I love that. Okay, so we've got our 4 key routines.
We're rocking it.
But now I want to talk about another challenge, which is how do you stop the influx of new clutter?
Ah, yes. This is a big one.
Because I can declutter all I want.
Right.
But if I'm constantly bringing new stuff into my house...
It's a losing battle.
It is. So how do we break that cycle?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Dana White says that the act of decluttering itself can actually help you change your perspective on shopping.
Really? How so?
Think about it this way. Every time you declutter something, it's like having a mini negative experience with that type of item.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Explain this negative experience.
So you're reminded of the money you wasted,
Right.
the space it took, the hassle of getting rid of it. And so the next time you're at the store and you see something similar,
Okay.
your brain is more likely to say, hold on, we've been down this road before.
Like, remember how that ended?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You start to associate those items with those negative feelings.
It's like you're developing this internal clutter radar.
I love that, yes.
And you're becoming more aware of the potential for clutter before you even bring it into your home.
And that awareness can be so freeing. It's not about depriving yourself.
Right.
It's about making more conscious choices.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's such a powerful takeaway from this whole conversation. It's not about perfection.
No.
It's about progress. It's about finding what works for you and your lifestyle.
And your relationship.
And your relationship. Yes, because we can't do this alone. We need to be able to support each other and find solutions that work for everyone involved.
Absolutely. It's a team effort.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some of the key things you hope our listener is taking away from this conversation?
Well, I think first and foremost, I hope they're feeling empowered.
Empowered, yes.
Like they have the tools and the knowledge to create a more peaceful and organized home.
And a more harmonious relationship with their partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope they remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress one step at a time.
I love that. So to our amazing listener out there, we challenge you to take what you've learned today and start implementing it in your own life.
Even if it's just one small step, like doing a 5-minute pickup or having a conversation with your partner about clutter.
Every little bit counts.
And remember, progress over perfection.
Yes, and I think that's a really important point to emphasize because decluttering can sometimes feel very like task-oriented.
Right, just get rid of stuff.
Exactly, but there's a deeper layer to it.
It's about creating space, not just in your physical environment, but also in your mind and in your life.
Yes, and it's about being more intentional with what you choose to keep and what you choose to let go of.
And that intentionality can really ripple out into all areas of your life.
Oh, absolutely. It's like once you start decluttering your physical space, you start to think about like, okay, what else can I declutter?
Right. What else is weighing me down? What else is taking up space that could be used for something more meaningful?
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful shift to make. And it's something that Dana White talks about in the interview as well.
Oh, yeah. She's a big believer in that ripple effect.
And she also talks about how decluttering can actually help you curb your shopping impulses, which I found really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. I think it's like a superpower that you develop.
Okay. Tell me more about that, because I know a lot of people struggle with shopping and like bringing in more stuff than they need.
Yeah. Well, think about it. Every time you declutter something, it's like you're having a mini negative experience with that type of item.
Right, because you're reminded of like, oh, I wasted money on this, or this took up so much space, or this was such a pain to get rid of.
Exactly. And so the next time you're at the store and you're tempted to buy something similar,
your brain's like, oh, no, we're not doing that again.
Yeah, you're more likely to pause and ask yourself, do I really need this? Or will it just end up as clutter?
It's like you're training your brain to be more discerning.
And more mindful. And that mindfulness can really extend to all areas of your consumption, not just shopping.
Right. It's about being more conscious of what you're bringing into your life in general.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important takeaway from this whole conversation. It's not just about getting rid of stuff.
It's about creating a more intentional and fulfilling life.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some final words of wisdom that you would offer to our listener who's maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all of this?
Well, first I would say don't try to do it all at once.
Yes, small steps.
Pick one area to focus on. Maybe it's a drawer, a shelf, a corner of a room.
Start small and build from there.
Exactly. And remember that decluttering is a process. It's not a destination.
So be patient with yourself.
Yes, and celebrate your progress along the way. Even those small wins are worth celebrating.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, don't hesitate to reach out for support.
There are so many great resources available online and in your local community.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
We're all in this together.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about decluttering.
So to our amazing listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of decluttering and organizing.
And we hope you're feeling inspired to create a more peaceful and intentional space for yourself.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So just start where you are and keep moving forward.
Happy decluttering, everyone.
Until next time.